I'm going to go ahead with the meeting beginning ritual now. 起立，面向佛堂，参加先鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，参加各位的传世一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated.
Righty. And good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you happen to be at this particular moment. Here in scenic Indianapolis, Indiana, it's early afternoon, 1:30. Well, a little cloudy and rainy, but a gorgeous, beautiful day to be participating in this process. And welcome everybody to the Tao study group for today. Today I get to talk to you about something that I don't talk about real frequently, although every now and again it bears some mention. It's an important aspect of the I Kuan Tao practice, but today's a little special. So anyway, and that's the process of receiving a house shrine, of becoming a shrine owner. It's something that I've done. It's something I'm sure most of you are aware of. It's something Derek either has done or is going to be doing at some point in time in the near to middle and future. And it's an important step in one's practice and cultivation of the Tao teachings. It's kind of an interesting phenomena, particularly perhaps for those of us here in the West who aren't and don't start out being familiar with the practices of the temple and what have you. And so, with that thought in mind, we're gonna chat about that just a bit. The reason for the lesson topic this week is because one of my dear friends and students, Nate, whom most of you probably know, and I have been talking for the last few days, and Nate's made a decision, I believe, to request a house shrine of the temple. I haven't had an opportunity to speak with Master William and Master Chen yet, but I'll be availing myself of that opportunity at the earliest possible convenience here next week. And having that discussion with him both brings up the practical aspects of helping one to receive a house shrine, which I've done before, and perhaps equally as importantly for me, a bit of nostalgia about receiving my own and what led up to that event and perhaps what leads other people to that event. I want to say that it's a fundamental tenet of what we do in the way that the temple works, that we don't pressure people into trying to receive shrines or take on responsibilities that they don't feel are right for them, or solicit money from them, or cause for them to proselytize and evangelize and those sorts of things. And particularly here, because there's a decidedly Western and Indiana flair, if you will, to the practice of the teachings out here. There's not a lot of inducement or incentive or pressure placed on anyone to do anything that they don't feel in their hearts is the right thing to do. I'm always here, just as Derek is, and as we have been for years and years, to help anyone who desires to advance their spiritual path or go down the path of becoming a shrine owner. But we don't go out and attempt to get people to make that decision they really need to come to us. And so the way this got started with Nate was that, he's been a student of mine for some years, and he put together a little house shrine of his own, which is a more or less common occurrence amongst the folks that I teach here. And I asked him when I saw what he'd done, which is positively beautiful, if he was interested in perhaps receiving a house shrine, if he thought that might be in keeping with his spiritual path. And he said that he thought perhaps that it was, and that's where the discussion started. And so, like I said, over the last few days we've been talking about that, and he's decided that sounds like something he'd like to do, which I think is just phenomenal and wonderful. It's outstanding. It seems that karma is as kind as it can perhaps be sometimes ruthless, and we don't always get to see that aspect of things. But to me, among other things, Nate represents next generation of those who practice the Tao teachings. Like it or not, I'm getting older. I'm not quite ancient yet, but I'm getting older, and I do have problems with my heart and lungs and back, and those problems have been more pressing recently. And so, when Nate not only mentioned his desire to receive a shrine, but for his shrine to be public, like mine is, that just warmed the cockerels of my heart. Something fierce, and brought to mind, the kind of the changing of the guard, perhaps. I don't intend on going anywhere for quite some time to come, but I don't know of too many house shrines that are open to the public, and out here, east of the Mississippi, we're kind of I think all of the I Kuan Tao presence there is, and so every time we install a new house shrine, every time someone's initiated, every time the teachings are brought to somebody who hadn't previously heard them, and that resonance occurs, and those seeds take hold and sprout, it's always amazing and wonderful to me. But receiving a house shrine isn't something that's done lightly, and it's not something that's frivolous or not without a certain degree of solemnity and severity. There's a commitment involved in receiving a house shrine, a commitment to a couple of pretty hard and fast rules, a commitment to spiritual growth and refinement, a commitment to helping to share the teachings and to helping to end suffering and to helping other people. And those commitments are things that require careful consideration and introspection to undertake establishing a house shrine, to take on the heavenly mission without an appropriate amount of introspection and consideration is to invite failure and catastrophe as far as the operation of the house shrine goes. Now, because I know Nate really well and I've known him for a long time, I absolutely know that a long time before he and I ever had a discussion about it, that he'd done the consideration and introspection. That's not even a question. Those things are givens in his case. Nate is a meticulous and thoughtful and considerate person, and makes his decisions with care and with forethought. And I know, once again, because I know him well, that his spiritual path is sincere, and that his desire to refine himself, both practically in his secular life and spiritually, are also sincere, and that his desire to help other people is sincere. He's been doing that for years in the Tai Chi school anyway, particularly since I started having health issues. He stepped up all over the place. He and Mike Williams, yet another of my dear friends and students, to make sure that those who needed the training, the education, and the teachings had access to them. And for that, I'm very appreciative. But I know, because I know these things, that the appropriate amount of introspection and consideration's gone into the decision-making process for him. I know that Nate has a strong desire to help others and a strong desire to end suffering on this planet, and that to the maximum degree he's able to do that he absolutely positively will. And that desire comes through in everything that he does. And so I'm pretty comfortable with that. The things he wasn't necessarily familiar with, the first is obviously the commitment to become vegetarian. I've said 3 or 4 times in the first slide things to the effect of ending suffering on this planet. That isn't just the suffering of people, that's all suffering, the suffering of animals included. And so, when a person desires to receive the house shrine, they have to become vegetarian. The Qing Ko ritual, the cleansing of the mouth, is all about integrity, honesty, and vegetarianism, among other things. The cleansing not only of what comes out of the mouth, but of what goes into it. And those things are important. Not contributing to the suffering of sentient beings on this planet is a worthwhile goal to be pursued. And I think that's well within Nate's mindset and spiritual path. But we talked about that a bit because I'm sure at some level he was aware of it. I'm not sure that he was necessarily aware that it was a requirement. Along with that, there's the demonstration of a commitment to the teachings, to continuing them, to preserving them, to passing them on, to not abandoning them over time. Try to say that 3 times fast. And Nate's hung in there with me for enough years that I absolutely know he'll see it through. He absolutely will. I don't have any doubt in my mind there. I think his spiritual practice is exemplary, and I've always been very proud of him for that. It requires a degree of self-discipline to continue to refine oneself over time as time and circumstances and changes in our lives affect us. Because changes in our lives will affect us. They will. Things happen to us all the time. Some of them we control, some of them we feel that we don't control, and all of them we have to deal with. But the practice of the teachings needs to continue unabated through those life changes. I'm going through several of them right now myself, and while some of them are going to alter the way that I practice the teachings, none of them are going to alter the fact that I practice the teachings until this body finally gives up and I return to the void from which we all came. I can't say that I'm fearful of that day. I'm actually rather curious. By the same token, I don't think I'm going to hurry that day up by so much as a second if I can prevent it. But still, it's an important aspect of taking on the responsibility of the house shrine to commit to the teachings and to preserving them. There are the rituals 3 times a day that need to be done. A lot of people complain about the 6 a.m. ritual. For me, that one's never been a problem. I'm always up way early anyway, and for me that's a peaceful time. And it's a relaxing time. Even when I can't get down and up the stairs, I can still spend a few moments with myself and the rituals and be reminded of the source of my strength and my ability to continue to go. And that's important. It means a devotion to our spiritual path, which of everything we've talked about so far perhaps is one of the more nebulous aspects of running a house shrine, especially if one's gonna talk to other people, if one's going to have a public shrine, because the spiritual path on a person-to-person basis is open to such wide interpretation based on what's appropriate for an individual. But I firmly believe that in Nate's case, as in mine, that whatever he says to anyone as regards the practice of the spiritual path will be the most appropriate and correct thing that he believes with all of his heart and soul at the time that he says it. I can't ask for anything more than that from someone who'd either advise me or from someone that I might advise. There's also an investment of a certain amount of time. And there's a passage that actually occurs in the original etiquette and rituals of I Kuan Tao that I've never let go of. The retranslation is excellent. It's stellar. It's wonderful. It's clear and concise. But this particular rendering is one that I hold dear just because it says so eloquently the truth. And what it says is that the amount of time that's required for our spiritual activities is much less than the time spent in our secular activities, but that the spiritual activities are of no less importance. How often we ignore the spiritual for the mundane. And sacrifice the spiritual path for the practical. It's a function of living, of just getting by in this existence, of struggling day to day, as it were, to earn a living and keep the families going and keep everybody's heads above water and make sure that things get done, especially when things are hectic and crazy and, everything's going on around us. But yet it is our spiritual path, our spiritual pursuits that provide us with the sanity and calm and equanimity in those circumstances to remain constant and pretty much unaffected by all of the craziness around us when it occurs. The investment that we make in our spiritual pursuits comes back to us 1,000 times over in our secular lives if we make the investment of time. If we don't, then when things get really tough or really crazy, we may find we lack the spiritual depth to persevere. We lack the stamina to finish the race. And that's a shame when that happens. So why do we do this? Why subject ourselves to additional rules, disciplines, and what intrusions into our personal lives, as it were, by the rules and dogmas of the organization to have a house shrine. Why go down that path? Why become a Tiansu? What's it do for you? Well, I can't answer what it does for Nate. He'll have to answer that on his own. For me, it seemed to be the next logical step in my spiritual education and refinement. It seemed to be the next step in trying to help spread and preserve the ancient Tao teachings in a world that largely has lost them, to preserve traditions and ways of doing things that have meaning and value, and to allow those teachings to work their evolution on me so that I could refine myself and improve myself to become the person I should be instead of just the person I was. Now, I still have a long way to go in terms of spiritual and secular refinement. I don't call myself anybody's spiritual master. I don't call myself anybody's Buddha, and I certainly hope nobody puts me up on that pedestal, because I'm absolutely doomed to let you down if you do. I'm as human as human gets, and as plain as dirt. But I try every day of my life to do the best that I can to rise to the ideals that Lao Tzu saw when he penned the Tao Te Ching, to rise to the level that the Buddhas saw in their practice and in their teaching, and to be of that sort of help to the folks who ask me to help them. I hope with all of my heart that the words of the Buddha Qigong, our great teacher, come through me when I talk to other people, so that they're not stuck relying on the advice of a mere person who only has a brief 58 years of experience. That's a pretty short amount of time to try and tell somebody else how to rectify their life. I try to avoid telling other people how to rectify their lives anyway. That's a dangerous thing to do. We all still try to be helpful. I'm unbelievably proud of Nate and very happy for him. This has been the most fulfilling and productive spiritual pursuit I have ever seen, studied, or participated in. And when I started out, I was on my way to the Southern Baptist Seminary to become a Southern Baptist minister. I was about as far removed from the ancient Chinese teachings as you can get. and yet, you know, my karma brought me here. I can't say that I'm sorry for the trip or for the outcome. It's been a remarkable ride so far. Can't wait to see what else the future holds. And becoming a Tianzu and trying to live up to that responsibility and spread these teachings has benefited me in more ways than I can count. Myself and my family and all the people around me. I can pretty safely say that the same things are going to happen for Nate, and I can't wait to see how that unfolds. I think it's just about the coolest thing there is. And so I'm going to do everything that I can do to make sure that that happens for him. Nate, if you're here, sorry if I put you on the spot. You can take it out on me next Saturday. And thank you all very, very much for letting me share with you. Thanks so much.
Hey, Bill, thank you. Bill, I want to insert a note here that the shrine was set up for you back in May 29, 2005. That's
Yes.
11 years ago now.
You and I have been doing this for a while.
And if you look back on that day, look at the photos that we took on that day, I think the memories come flooding back. It was a great day. It was also a lot of fun.
It was. It absolutely was. We still talk about it from time to time.
Yeah, and your kids probably see themselves 11 years ago, and they just it must be a lot of fun for them to see themselves that small.
Yeah, Aaron's sitting here with me right now, and he's whispering in my ear, "I remember that day."
Excellent.
Aaron is telling me, last week he told me he wants to prepare and give his very first talk to this study group soon.
Yeah. One of the things that I enjoy doing, Bill, is to observe the people around me progress and grow, each in their own fashion. So I like to think that I've come to understand you better than when we first met. I think more than 15 years ago. So
I think so, yes.
I'd like to make an observation about you, about the way you regard the Tao, your shrine, I Kuan Tao, the spiritual practice, and you tell me if I am right or wrong.
Go right ahead.
I think that when you turn your gaze to your shrine, when you look at it, when you think about the people you connected with, Senior Master Yang, the people at the temple, our trip together, the connection you made with Peter, these are just some of the numerous examples. When you look at the whole thing, you put it under this overall category of I Kuan Tao or the Tao or your own spiritual practice, I think what you see is something that is just so beautiful beyond your ability to really describe, and you also feel kind of strange that something so beautiful that the most of the world doesn't seem to know a whole lot about. And that's the reason why you do what you do, is just to preserve that beauty and to perhaps pass it on.
Yeah, that's actually a remarkably accurate sort of a description. To try and describe the breadth and magnitude of the process and the effects is just about staggeringly impossible for me. It's something you just almost can't describe. But maybe from the outside looking in, especially from someone like yourself who's watched me over the years, maybe the changes are a little more evident and the connection's a little more clear.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting ending ritual, everybody. 起立，面向佛堂，持架三鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持架规则是一鞠躬，接班一鞠躬。Okay, everybody, we are done.
Participate in the Tao meeting by joining us online. For information, go to Taoism.net/Tao